This is episode 3 of the STEM in Style Maker series. I am your host Takita and I'm so excited for this episode because it's a carnival special, carnival special, carnival special, carnival special. We are fast approaching one of my favourite bank holiday weekends in London, and had it not been for COVID, millions and millions of people would be lavishing in the burst of energy, the food, the vibes, the sounds of Notting Hill Carnival, Europe's largest street festival. This year, Notting Hill Carnival is going digital, so we will be enjoying the art and festivities of Carnival from our homes. So to complete your experience, I am taking you through an activity that draws on inspirations from Carnival costumes, African and Caribbean culture, and festival fashion, and sprinkling a little bit of STEM on it by incorporating some sewable circuits.
Wearing hardware and electrical components isn't new to fashion, and in the last few decades, the growth and innovation in this area has been monumental. Growing up, I've seen how we've gone from light up footwear and light up trainers to those cute little digital watch rings, and I definitely remember those programmable message belts as well. And what we have now is clothes that can interact with social media, actual self-tying trainers, and even winking robotic dresses. Thanks to the introduction of sewable electronics and soft circuits into the fashion industry, there has been far more refined and discreet ways of integrating technology into clothing and accessories, which we'll be having a go at for today's creation. Rather than wires and huge batteries and other bulky components, we're essentially going to be hand sewing a parallel circuit. This basically means that we'll be connecting the positive side of each of our components to each other and to the positive terminal of our power source, which is a coin cell in this instance, and doing the same for the negative side of our circuit. Starting off with your electrical components, you will need some LEDs. I'm using 5 for this project. These are some sewable ones, or you can use the regular round-headed ones. I'm also using a coin cell holder, which has the positive and negative labelled, and it has a push button as well. And I've obviously going to need a coin cell battery to go in that holder, positive side up, remember. And conductive thread is what I will be using to connect everything up, and also some regular thread to keep everything in place. And obviously we will need some needles. Clear nail varnish really helps to stop the conductive thread from fraying. Then you'll need some crisp packets and some cardboard or scrap card. This will help make the base of your headpiece. I've also got some scrap felt that actually matches the colours of my LEDs, and I've got some scrap ribbon that's going to tie up my headpiece, and I'm using some old jeans that have an unsightly tear as my fabric. To stick, I'm using double-sided Permafix tape. You can use scissors or a craft knife to cut, a tailor's awl to make holes. You will need a marker and a ruler and measuring tape, and a whistle, of course. To get started, you'll want to measure around the front of your head from ear to ear and start creating the base of your headpiece. I'm going for a sort of sweetheart V-shaped headpiece. However, I did try out a few other ideas as well. Now I'm going for a sort of 2-layer design, so my upper layer will have my hand sewn circuit, and the lower layer will be covered using the shiny part of my crisp packet.
life is no better roses. 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 Well, if you want to live like a winner, you want to drive a Corolla, be a regular traveler, travel people all over. Everything that was given to me, you want to have your own company. Love life with no sympathy. Put up your hands and let me see. AI.
If your adhesive of choice is double-sided tape, please avoid overlapping it like I have here. You will see why shortly. So that the overhanging edges of your crisp packet neatly fold around any curves in your design, just put quite a few slits or tabs into the overhanging edges just so that they can easily fold under and follow the curves of your shape. And it was at this point that I realized I should not have overlapped my double-sided tape. Now that your crisp packet layer is done, it's time to move on to the next layer, which we will be using to sew our circuit onto. First things you want to do is to cut your top layer shape from the fabric. I'm using my denim jeans, as you can see. And again, you want to make that slightly bigger than the shape, just so that you can fold over and neaten the edges. Great, now that we've got that cut out, we can start to make a mark for where we want our LEDs. I'm letting mine kind of follow along the V shape of my design, and I've put mine 2.5 centimeters apart from each other. Now it's time to get all of your components together because it's time to sew your circuit. So what I'm doing here is just folding over the fabric twice and using the points that were made prior as edges so that I can cut a little circle into my fabric. This is where the LED will peep out of when it lights up. It's always handy to place everything out before you start sewing, just to make sure everything is in the right position. And what I'm doing is also marking the positive and negative terminals of the coin cell holder, just so that I can keep track of my endpoint. So I'm going to start by sewing the positive side of my circuit first, and to get started I like to do a few stitches over each other. If you're more comfortable with doing a knot, then feel free to do so, but this is how I'm starting off my stitching. Then what you will do is continue to sew all the positive sides of your components. So for my LEDs, there's a little plus sign next to the eyelet, or next to the little hole. And what I do also do is I go around those holes a few times just to make sure that the LED is quite secure. And once you've done a few stitches around your LED, you can move on to the next LED, and you can do a normal straight stitch to the next LED, which you can see a bit closer here.
It is not for me. Happiness don't cause a cent, but the way you wine nice big money. When you tip on your toe, y'all flick, y'all wine and go low, y'all flick, y'all star of the show, y'all flick. I was shares in your business. There is no other out there like you. Yeah, nah, yeah. Them girl can't move how you move. No, nah, yeah. Broke up with your natural smoothness. Them girl a pay money for them cuteness. So come let me tell you what two things link up with two kings. And then we deal with the thing, cause you know say we grind on anything, lift up everything.
A handy tip for when you are hand sewing circuits is to try and make your stitches as neat as possible and as tight as possible. This is so that you can avoid having any loose thread that could come into contact with the other side of your circuit and create a short circuit. You also want to make sure that the connections to your components are really secure, so that the electricity can flow through that thread easily and avoid any breaks in your circuit.
My girl is a 10 out of 10 times 2, yeah. Say from Sapa, I could be like you do. Them girl you can't rock out like you, yeah. Jaja knows what he's doing when he made you. Cause there is no other out there like you. Yeah, nah, yeah. Them girl can't move how you move. No, nah, yeah. Broke up with your natural smoothness. Them girl a pay money for them cuteness. So come let me tell you what two things link up with two kings. And then we deal with the thing, cause you know say we grind on anything.
As you're sewing, it's always handy to just have a quick check to make sure that your LEDs are lined up to the holes that you've made in the fabric. With the positive sides of your LED all sewn up, you can continue that stitch on now to the positive terminal of your coin cell holder. What I tend to do is, again, go around the eyelet or that hole quite a few times just to make sure that everything is secure and that you've got a good connection on that conductive thread. Remember to have your clear nail varnish handy so that you can use that to stop the fraying of your conductive thread.
Tell me if you love the vibe, Baba. All I need is a mic and I'ma sing.
And we're now going to repeat that process again, but for the negative side of our circuit. So again, what you'll do is you will do some straight stitches, connecting up the negative side of your components or the negative side of your LEDs, and you're going to stitch along until you get to the negative side of the coin cell holder.
That's all I've done. I'll wait for the breakdown. Sounds like a live thing. Can you feel the bass line? My phone's ringing. Hello. Darling, it's okay if you're gonna be a bit late. As long as I drive you back, I'll call you back. Walk to the radio, it's let it my flow. Just rewind your track. Might not fall with lash as you sing.
When sewing to the negative terminal of the battery holder, what I tend to do is just to veer off of the straight path from the components, just so that I don't bump into the actual battery holder, or to avoid any overlap on the board. Yay, we have light. Hopefully you do too. If not, feel free to ask any questions in the comments and do any troubleshooting in the comments as well. Now what I'm doing is just putting a few tabs in to fold over my fabric and to neaten this layer. And now we're connecting those two layers. As you can see, I've learnt my lesson not to overlap my double-sided tape. Hooray! So I'm decorating my headpiece with red, gold and green, a colour combination that not only matches my lights, but has a significant meaning for many nations and people of African and Caribbean descent. Each colour, respectively, recognises the many lives lost and the overcoming of struggles throughout our journey, as well as taking great pride in the richness of the people, the land and culture. And that's what Carnival really embodies for many people around the world. And it's an opportunity to celebrate a sense of freedom. So what better way to pay homage than to include these colours in this design? We love seeing how you interpret our design briefs, so please make sure that you tag us at STEM in Style on Instagram or on Twitter and use the hashtag #MakeSTEMInStyle so we can see everyone's work in one place. As you can see here, my decorative feature is also very handy at hiding the coin cell holder. It's important to make sure that if you do add a decorative feature, make sure that you can access your coin cell holder just in case you need to change the battery, and also remember that if it has the button embedded, that you can also press the button.
Send for the punch and bring her the back of it. There's plenty bottles line up like on a range. We go do it just like the other day. We don't care what people say. It could be water, it could be rum, it could be anything, everything going down. It could be water, it could be rum, it could be anything, everything going down. Cause two bottles over me. And I box into the brothers over me. Hey, hey, brothers over me. Hey. Now watch the girl them wine go down and the gong like.
So now that the bulk of our design is complete and our circuit is working, hooray, we can add the ribbon. I'm just going to use the tailor's awl to make some holes in the base of my headpiece. You may need to use a scissors to slightly widen those holes if you're using a thick piece of ribbon like I am, but if you're using a shoelace it should be fine. And that is it complete. You are officially ready for Carnival 2020. And you're also prepared for partying through the night. Thank you for joining me on another installment of the STEM in Style Maker series. I hope you enjoyed this one. I definitely did. Remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel and to hit that notifications bell so you can stay up to date with when we post the next video. See you soon.